What happens when a wildlife photographer risks everything to pull a drowning tiger from a raging river, only to face armed men who want it gone? What unfolded next shook the entire reserve. You ever think you're just going to have a normal day, and then nature slaps you in the face? That was me, standing on this creaky excuse for a bridge, camera in hand, ready to photograph a quiet stretch of river. No drama, no headline, just some serene shots for the magazine. Then I saw it, at first just a flash of orange under the churning brown water. Took me a second to register it wasn't a log. It was alive. A tiger, fighting for its life, going under more than staying up. And before I could remind myself that tigers come with teeth the size of kitchen knives, my body was already moving. I threw my gear onto the bank and jumped in. The cold hit like a truck. The current didn't care that I wasn't built for Olympic swimming. It shoved, pulled, and tried to spin me like laundry. But all I could see was that tiger's head slipping under again. I got to him, grabbed around his neck in a way that made every survival instinct in my brain scream bad idea. But he didn't fight me. He was too far gone for that. The weight of him was unreal, every kick of my legs burning, lungs turning to fire. Somehow, and don't ask me to explain the physics, we hit the bank without both going under for good. I pulled him onto the mud, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The tiger lay there gasping, chest heaving, eyes half shut. He wasn't just wet, he was beaten, exhausted to the core. I barely had a moment to breathe before I heard branches snapping behind me. Out came 3 men in faded military-style jackets, carrying rifles like they owned the place. Their faces said it all. This wasn't a rescue party. One of them stepped forward, looked at the tiger, then at me. "You know what you're doing?" he asked, voice flat. "Saving a life?" I shot back, still kneeling beside the animal. He gave a short, humorless laugh. "Not your problem. Step away." And right then I realized I'd pulled this tiger out of one kind of death and straight into the path of another. What happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss how this turned into something much bigger and much more dangerous. The guy in front, the one barking orders, had that look of someone who was used to getting his way. The other 2 flanked him, shifting their rifles like they were ready to settle this in their favor. I didn't move. "He's hurt?" I said, slow and clear, like maybe reason could slip through whatever wall they had for a conscience. The leader smirked. "That's the point." My gut tightened. I'd read enough field reports to know the drill. A wounded predator is easy prey for people like them. This wasn't about fear. It was about profit. Behind me, the tiger gave a weak growl, more air than sound. I felt it through the ground, and it made my skin crawl. Not from fear, but from knowing he was trying to stand and couldn't. Then, cutting through the tension, came a voice from the trail. "Jack!" I turned to see Rajiv, my guide, my one real link to help out here, jogging toward us with a bamboo pole in one hand and a battered radio in the other. He sized up the situation in 2 seconds flat, stepping right to my side. "Put the rifles down," Rajiv said, not loud, but with enough weight in his voice to make even the birds go quiet. The leader didn't flinch. "Walk away, both of you. Nobody has to know." Rajiv clicked the radio, sending out a short burst of static, the distress signal we'd agreed on back at camp. Help was now officially on the clock, but the clock was slow and these guys were fast. One of the others started to move around to our left, circling. I shifted, blocking his angle. My pulse was pounding so hard it felt like the whole scene was running on borrowed time. "You think this is your land?" the leader said. "You think you can come here and tell us how it works?" "No," I said, holding his stare. "I think I can tell you this animal isn't leaving with you." For a long moment, it was nothing but breathing, the rustle of leaves, and the low hum of adrenaline. Then, a shout from the forest. More voices, boots on dirt. From the tree line, 6 people appeared, volunteers from the reserve carrying sticks, nets, and the kind of determination that makes men with rifles think twice. The leader glanced at his crew, cursed under his breath, and backed up. "This isn't over," he threw at me before melting into the brush. I didn't believe for a second that it was. Rajiv and I worked fast, lashing together a makeshift stretcher from branches and cloth. The tiger's breathing was steadier now, but his body trembled with every movement. We lifted him one step at a time, deeper into the reserve. I knew the rifles might be gone from sight, but their owners were still out there, watching, waiting. This is the turning point. Everything you've been waiting for is about to hit. Stay here, you need to see how this ends. We were halfway up the ridge when the sound came. Branches snapping, fast and deliberate. I didn't need a field guide to know who it was. Rajiv met my eyes, and we both shifted the stretcher higher, picking up the pace. Then they appeared, stepping out from the brush like they'd been born there. The same men, plus two more. Rifles slung, eyes locked on the tiger. "Put it down," the leader barked. "No," I said and kept moving. That was enough to set them off. They surged forward, trying to flank us. Rajiv shouted something in Hindi I didn't catch, but I knew the tone. "Move now." We swung off the main trail into a narrow cut in the hillside. Roots and rocks tore at our boots, but the path funneled us toward a stone pass barely wide enough for the stretcher. The pounding of their boots behind us was steady, closing in. One of them lunged, grabbing at the stretcher's corner. I twisted, yanking it free, my shoulder screaming in protest. The tiger gave a weak rumble, eyes flicking open, sensing the fight. And then salvation in khaki. Two rangers stepped into the choke point ahead, nets in one hand, batons in the other. No speeches, no warnings. They moved in with the precision of men who'd done this before. The leader froze, reading the numbers. 4 against 7 now, and the balance wasn't in his favor. One of the rangers snapped cuffs on the nearest man before he could turn. The others hesitated too long, and that was all it took. Within moments, the rifles were on the ground, and the fight was over. We pushed on to the reserve's clinic. Inside, the vet worked quickly, tracing an old, ugly scar on the tiger's neck. A steel trap mark. That wound had weakened him, slowed him, made him easy prey. Exactly what those men wanted. I filmed everything. The injury, the capture, the release back into the wild 2 weeks later, stronger and wary, but free. The footage made it to national news, sparking outrage far beyond this stretch of jungle. The men we faced didn't just lose their chance at this tiger, they lost their ground. Patrols doubled. Laws tightened. People started paying attention. Standing there the day we let him go, I didn't feel like I just saved an animal. I felt like I'd kicked a hole in the wall those men hid behind. And if you've ever seen a tiger disappear into the trees without a sound, you know, that's a victory worth the fight.